since our last upload of a video. Now we have new and exciting information. That is why we show up again. Also because of the press conference in the Mexican Congress. You will have heard about this, I'm pretty sure. But this will be subject of our next video. We are scientists and not very happy with that presentation of the mummies. It seemed like a big fancy show, which is actually a pity if you think about the importance those findings could have. Another subject of one of our upcoming videos will be our own research. More at the end of the video. Now, what this video is about is that a few months ago 5 YouTubers joined in a video conference to discuss the aspect and certain analysis that had been carried out on a 3-fingered mummy which had apparently suffered some irreversible damage during transport to a country outside of Peru. Those 5 are a Peruvian reporter who had previously been present at several investigations of various 3-fingered mummies, a Mexican forensic scientist who was unfortunately involved in a fraud scandal involving an alien mummy that in the end was not an alien mummy at all, and 3 ufologists. What can we say about such kind of, let's say, hidden exploitation? We will certainly see such trafficking of the valuable mummies as long as the Peruvian Ministry of Culture does not overcome its strange attitude and finally have the pterodactyls analyzed by his own or foreign experts, instead of constantly using more or less illegal means trying to take the objects from the hands of the University of Ica. Actions such as transporting a mummy out of the country take place because people want to know what the mummies are like. Of course, it also shows that the grave robber involved is selling the finds to the highest bidders. Who knows how many have already disappeared, how many mummies, in the hands of collectors. Well, the 5 YouTubers are a bit too enthusiastic, with a lack of objectivity, which is why I took a closer look at the case, using the methods of good old Sherlock Holmes. It's elementary, my friends. The mummy seen here is unfortunately partially broken, namely the right humerus, the neck and the feet. The unfortunate transportation accident of this mummy allows us, and this is a blessing in disguise, a look inside, just as it says in the original title of the video, the inside of a mummy. The most spectacular thing here is a broken neck, namely the part of the neck that is still connected to the thorax, because here, taking a closer look, we see an insect, a larva. The insect is identified by the Mexican ufologist who has knowledge in biology as a representative of a beetle family called Dermestidae, more precisely as Dermestes maculatus, which are flesh-eating beetles. Those we can find in carpets, taxidermy, fur and even wood. They can be found quickly on animal carcasses, whose hair and skin they like to feed on because of the high keratin content. Dermestes maculatus is considered to be the most widespread species of Dermestidae in Peru today. The 5 YouTubers do not ask many questions that need to be asked, such as the first and most important: what species does the larva actually belong to? Is it really a Dermestes maculatus, or its relative, which was added to the list of representatives of the family Dermestidae in Peru in 2008? Why is this important? Because, among other things, the adult beetles that lay eggs on or in a carcass are not always as large as they portray. Nobody in the group actually knows which species they have in front of them. All further speculation, and there are no more than such, now revolves only around this species. although there are about 1,400 species of this beetle worldwide. As I said before, the Mestes maculatus is present in Peru, so mentioning it makes sense. However, the length of the discussion about this one species makes no sense, as there are other species of the family you could also talk about in detail for quite some time. And contrary of what they are saying, the beetle does normally not develop in years, but in weeks or months. So they should be sure about the species before starting to philosophize about it on such a scale and with such excitement. Second question: how did the larva get to this place? Did the mummy's head break off long before transport? Was it just a coincidence that only one egg developed at that point from which a larva hatched and then died through contact with the diatomaceous earth? Or did a beetle crawl in through some orifices to lay eggs? This question doesn't seem to interest anyone. Question number 3. Dozens of eggs are laid by a beetle. It can hardly be assumed that the beetle crawled into the mummy, lay only one egg, and then looked for another place, let's say for 99 others. That sounds absurd. But if it laid all of its eggs there, then there would have to be more larvae or eggs in the body. This important topic is not even briefly mentioned. Question number 4. A larva of this size that has grown inside the body must have left traces of feeding. Did somebody even look for it? Are there any traces? Maybe the little spots we can see? Who knows? Most likely they haven't looked for it because they haven't asked the relevant questions. It is not without reason that larvae are larger than the adult beetle in order to survive the high energy consuming pupation. They sometimes reach twice the size of the adult beetle. If the larva was in the mummy before the neck broke off, then this place was probably some kind of predetermined breaking point. No mention on this topic. Perhaps this could explain the reason for the neck breaking, at least this break. One could ask other questions, but well, I don't want to extend the subject too much. But I don't just want to complain. What is very interesting are the images of the inside of the hollow bones. We also explained this topic in one of the previous videos. Sorry, they are just available in German at the time. You may use your translator if you are interested. The hollow bones are one of the main special features of the three-fingered Nazca mummies. The joint sockets on the feet that can be seen here are also very nicely explained, a view that comes about because, unfortunately, the toes fell off during transportation. Nevertheless, the multiple fractures are an opportunity to gain insight into the bone structure without X-rays or CT images. And it confirms what was previously determined using X-rays and CT scans on other of these mummies, namely the hollow bones, which are only found in birds and dinosaurs and are filled with air, which give the bones lightness and stability. Next we come to the annoying topic of Franz Tausend, who was a German imposter and made a name for himself. especially in the 1920s and 30s. With his claim that he could produce gold, he even fooled the suspicious Nazis for a while in the mid-1920s. Ultimately, they withdrew his financial injections because he had always shown just a few crumbs of gold, an amount anybody could have scraped off a gilded chandelier. And in the end, the good Franz even ended up in prison for fraud. He did not create gold for others or himself. And of course, an alchemist with the ability to produce gold, who also has the necessary apparatus and means, this man or this person would be able to guarantee himself a good retirement. No need to work for others. The unconditional belief in a person, the hopes and wishes they evolve in you, all of this cannot be equated with a person's real abilities. Next subject. Here, an ancient vessel made of half gold and half silver are used as alleged evidence that the moche culture, be careful, the object does not belong to a culture that corresponds to the place where the Nazca mummies were found. So they say, this culture, this moche culture, was unable to do this using its own methods. A rather bold claim, since it is known, at least in Peruvian historical research, how the moche achieved this using quite, let's say, normal methods, using tools and furnaces. It is now claimed in the group that the wonderful method that the aforementioned Franz Tausend and also a South American tribe used or were supposed to use, that this method caused a metal transformation and the separation of gold and silver, which they believe could not have been achieved by ancient methods. So my question is, why would the Incas, predecessor cultures, had their gold and silver extracted from mines if the precious metals had been so easy to produce? Makes no sense, actually. Then, not a single tridactyl is depicted on the vessel. The art is from the moche culture, not from the Paracas or Nazca. Of course, it is possible that the moche also had knowledge of the three-fingered creatures, but nothing is known about this from their artwork. This shows that once again the imagination of those involved in the discussion is running wild. I completely understand where the reporter and then the others want to see three fingers, if it weren't for the small problem that the hands have no fingers. The forearms end in an animal head with teeth, and not only on the hands, but also where one would expect the feet to be. These heads grow out of the legs. By the way, you can see the same animal head up here where the arrow is pointing with its entire body. The moche world of gods was full of beings who not only had the characteristics of one animal or human, but of several beings, and were therefore naturally more powerful than the people who worshipped them. The moche left a kind of easy-to-interpret comics on the ceramics to depict things from their everyday life. If they knew about the tridactyls, they would have recorded something about it on their artwork. However, nothing like this has been found so far. Now let's have a look at the El Dorado from Colombia. When I saw the three-fingered figures on it, I also thought about the probability that these are representations of the tridactyls in different positions of power. But I came to the conclusion that this is not the case. So why aren't they tridactyls? The tridactyls have no visible ears. They do not have a clear visible long nose, and they do not have a normal-sized mouth. If you were to take everything about the work of art literally, you would also have to say that the 6 outer figures had 4 arms, and the central large figure was actually a giant. If anyone has any doubts about the craftsmanship, which was achieved using relatively simple means, but at a high level of creativity and talent, then you may watch the video on the subject from the Smithsonian Institute. Craftsmen who still work with this method today also know that, for example, the outer gold strands were used to fix the figures on the gold raft. They are not arms. There were also a few things that had already gone wrong with this lost wax model method. For example, the absence of a second palm tree. The lower trunk can be seen on the raft, but the rest had already been lost before the gold was poured. I wonder how those investigators interpret this without any further knowledge about the artwork. The masks, wearers, the figures, on the golden raft clearly show a human face behind the mask. The other figures don't even have a mask behind which one could suspect anything else. It is at best conceivable that the artist and/or his client wanted to give a reference to the tridactyl. The figures themselves are not representations of tridactyls. You see, the subject is huge. I cut it down to some points so that you can get an idea of how long an investigation on just one subject can become. So, I hope this helped you or confirmed what you had already assumed. Please be careful with claims, because claims are no evidence, and suppressed questions are evidence of sloppy research. Considering our own research, we studied the mummy's skin as well as the white substance on the body, and the implants on the mummies too. In addition, we went to different places in Peru to investigate whether other cultures also included 3-fingered creatures with the appearance of our tridactyls in their visual art. More about this very soon. If you enjoyed this video, we would be happy if you gave it a like, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe. Thank you for your interest, and see you next time.